Got a big problem on your hands? Hire a big solution. At the Sidaris insurrection, the Legion outmaneuvered, outfought, and outlasted the rebel upstarts, restoring order to a chaotic world. No Legionnaire will ever forget their steadfast tradition of fighting to the last. At the massacre of Canteron, Legionnaires sold their lives dearly while evacuating the royal family.
Royal families clear of palace. All back to the secondary.
Adept in any environment, Legionnaires have a long history of bringing the battle to the enemy, wherever and whoever they may be. Need an edge on your industry competitors? Legionnaires are experts in industrial sabotage and ready to put your competitors' profit margins 6 feet under.
Pull up! Pull up! Getting a little hot in here.
No mission too desperate, no job too dirty. Keep your hands clean and call in the Legionnaires.
Welcome to the next installment of the Inner Sphere Paint Bay with Pretzelbear, right here on the Worldwide Goji Kaichu YouTube channel. Welcome back. Today we are going to change directions. Up till now we've been working on units for the Pretzelbear's regulars. We've assembled some dragon. We've talked about Tester's paints and used that as a sample. Now we're going to actually go back to square one, since the Pretzelbear's regulars were already primed by the time I started the channel. We haven't shown much about actual priming. So it was requested that I do a starting from the very beginning conversation. We have a little music again. I just forgot to hit play. Should be a little bit of music in the background. It shouldn't be too distracting. Okay, so you went out and you bought a mini or a pack of minis or several minis or what have you. In this case, it was 4 force packs and a couple premium minis that you see arrayed here on the table. Where do you begin? Well, the first step is primer. Some people say go through and remove mold lines from the minis. I say leave them on and let the minis have a little bit of character. If there's a few extra lines, it's just repair lines over the ages. Don't stress yourself on that. If you get better later, maybe. But for right now, I don't really think it's necessary.
Or the all-new purple collection with the adaptive gel flex grid. Steve, that's your cue. Steve? Looks like he found his perfect mattress. Elevate your sleep game. Shop online or visit an Ashley store today.
That sounds like a commercial, not a DRM-free song. Sorry about that. I'll be more careful in the future. Okay. So, where do you begin? First off, you have your minis. In this case, we have our minis. Our minis are gray. Now, my videos are shown out of order because these minis I went outside and I sprayed with colored primer, and I had my wife film it. That'll be the next clip you see. This is Army Painter Color Primer Uniform Gray. Solid. I liked it more than the Tester's primer because the flow was a little easier to control. I didn't have to go back and rebrush anything out, unlike when I first did the video of testers where I did the testers priming, I didn't have to do that step. I took a brush with me just in case, but okay, if you're going to do that, if you're going to have a brush for priming, I have these vehicle brushes. That is the smallest primer brush I like to use. Why? Primer is about moving primer around the minis. It doesn't have to be a perfect coat. It doesn't have to coat everything. But with a nice wide brush, this brush is what, half an inch across, over a half an inch across, you can move more primer around and get through it faster. You can control the thickness of the layer. You can control everything about it. But in reality, I save those for top coating. Wife helped me pick out 2 makeup brushes. These were about $4 or $5 each, so roughly in line with the cost of the Army Painter brushes. The goal for primer, you want ideally a round brush. That way you can put your primer down, you can dip this around in it, and then you can roll the brush as you're priming with it to help ensure you're getting an even coat. Okay. This is the one I do all of my drop ships with. It's huge, but again, it's about moving a lot of primer. Well, in the case of a drop ship, a lot of a primer. It's about moving the primer around the model quickly and getting it into place and then letting it sit and dry. It's not about painting with it. These work fine. These work actually really well. Also, Citadel has some round brushes. Now, these are technically dry brushes, but they fit the bill. Round brush, capable of holding paint. So we'll use this on one, we'll use each of the makeup brushes on one, and walk through it. Now, gray primer. Why gray primer? Because it will add a little bit of depth to color, okay? I normally have been using, up till this point, black primer. What I like about the black primer ever since I started using it, this is Reaper Minis Black Primer, is the depth and richness of the color that it will impart on anything you layer over it, unless the paint is already really dark. Now, these are the Pretzelbears regulars. I don't have any out to show, but I've shown the drop ships a few times. These are red, purple, and blue, and they start with the darkest of each of the 4 reds, the darkest of each of the 4 purples, and the darkest of each of the 4 blues. Therefore, black primer isn't absolutely necessary in that case. The dark green I used and the green liner I used on the regulars, it actually did carry through. On the Grenadiers, I don't think it really did. Now, Army Painter has a brush-on gray primer. This is that can of primer, but in a brush-on variant. So we will try that out. And we have Reaper's gray primer. Why am I doing this? Because you're trying to decide what to choose to start. I can't tell you what to choose. I can show you options. I also know over on the Battlebound channel, any of Tuck's painting videos, he will show you what he uses. He uses a primer that he gets from an auto parts store. And one can last him a really long time, and it's really inexpensive. Be creative like that. It's like finding these makeup brushes. This is not something I ever thought I would have been shopping for mini painting. But having used them and having seen the benefit of them, I'm sold. I love them. When these wear out, I will get more. I don't necessarily need to learn about their makeup applying properties. I want them as paintbrushes. Okay? It's that simple. Now, we're not using my traditional palette. I didn't want to have to scrub it out right now. And this is going to be a lot of moving paint, a lot of primer. So we're going to start with the black primer, and I'll show you this. I'm only really worried about doing one mech with this, maybe two. So I'm just starting off with a dollop, okay? Just a little blob. And we'll start with the Sagittaire here. So I'm just going to load up my paint. Sorry, I know I'm using a weird part of my workspace there. And then I'm just going to apply some primer. Now I'm not using my magnifiers right now. I'm not even using my readers right now. I just have my regular bifocals on. Because again, I'm not worried about filling in every crack. And if you notice, I'm swirling around. I apologize for this music, because this is not, I did not tell it I wanted, because it's throwing in advertisements on.
That's Taylor's lucky number.
Advertisers need to be shot. I'm sorry. I don't like this. I am an amateur video maker. I don't want to have to pay for all these services, so I use the free ones, and they give me what they give me. Apologies for those advertisements, folks. Yeah. Okay, now this is an issue with this brush. Can't get up under there well. So that's something to note, is these Army Painter Mastered Class brushes are wide. They are thick. They are wide. Okay. And that's that. It's fine. Again, it's not a perfect coat. It's not a thick coat. It's just a quick layering. Okay. Just a quick little brush on. And that little dollop of paint that I poured out was right about the perfect amount. I got lucky in that regard. I almost always have leftover paint, or I have to pour more and then I pour too much and then I have leftover paint. In this case, we got it in one shot. Okay. Now, I'm not too worried about the little areas we couldn't reach up and under there. It's noticeable. You can see it there, little gray spots. I'm not going to worry about those. I will get those when I start the main coats of paint, because I will be using regular brushes. That was black primer. It was a quick, light layer of black primer. We lost no details on the Mini. We got enough of it covered that it will hold paint. Okay, little spot there that I can reach, so I filled that in. So that's the joy of a black primer. And that brush was okay. It was a solid okay paper. Okay? Now, we're going to do some brush on Army Painter Gray. Whatever I do with this will look kind of like these back here. I know it's gray on gray, but you actually can tell the difference. Oh, no. Ha ha. Ha. I've only had this happen with Army Painter bottles. It is the one drawback. The cap came off. So we're going to do a fair amount of this gray because we have a lot there. I will worry about fixing the bottle later. That's the only negative I can say about those bottles, is sometimes the little shaker balls get stuck and boom, you get everything out of at one time. Somebody's reaching out to me. Oh, my nephew. Okay. Looks like there's a new brunch spot we're going to have to try out. I'll deal with that later. Now, you can tell here where the paint is going on. Now, this is a thick coat to start, but I get to move it around with the brush. This is what I like about the bigger brush, is it's easier to do this with. With this little one, it's okay. When I'm done, it'll have spread around and look light and simple. But you can see we're just dabbing here and there. We're just getting a little in place. this out. Okay. Paint my fingers. Occasionally you see me wearing gloves. It's because I will get paint all over my hands. I've accepted that. Off of there, spread it around a little better. In this case, we'll just dab that one. Okay, so we're good. Lay that on there. Okay, so there's one. Do this. I'm gonna do another one. Army Painter Gray. And what we're going to be able to do when this is done is we will compare Army Painter Gray versus Reaper Gray and see if there's a shade difference, because ultimately you're wondering, if you're anything like me, what do I choose and why? Now, I happened to start with Reaper paints because it was the cheapest paint in my friendly local game store at the time, years ago. Now, when I buy paints through websites, Army Painter's actually 30 cents a bottle cheaper than Reaper. I'm not saying that's worth it. I'm not saying it's not worth it. When I order Reaper from online, I usually do fairly big orders. I don't just buy one or two paints. I usually hit at least the $50 mark. I don't buy paints that often. Please don't take it that way. When I do buy them, I usually hit the levels where I start getting free minis, because $50 you get free shipping and a mini, $100 you get even more. You know, every time you spend X amount, it's worth checking out. But I always end up with free shipping and multiple free extras, to the point of when I order, I try not to do 2 orders in the same month, because they do a free mini of the month when you spend X amount of dollars, usually that $50 mark. And frankly, sorry, neuropathy dropsies and my hands, and yeah, like I said, I get paint on myself. It happens. But what was I saying? I usually get, you know, enough extras when I buy from them that I feel they're adding value to my order. Now, most people who are doing Battletech or Wargame miniatures don't care about fantasy models. I happen to go multiple directions with my geekdom. I like fantasy models. I like sci-fi models. I like Wargame models. So I will get D&D minis. They're basically the Reaper mini line for D&D minis. And my wife usually helps me pick out which ones we get, because if she wants specific ones, I'll get them for her. I don't mind. You know, it's freebies. All I'm going for is the paint. But and I'm not sponsored by anybody at this point. If anyone who sees this decides they want to, let's talk. But I'm not trying to hawk a product here, okay? It's just I've found value in what Reaper does. But here lately, I've found coupons for War Games Delivered, where right now, I don't know if it will still be going on when this video comes out, but for the Army Painter regular paints, metallics, airbrush paints, whatever. I don't do airbrushing. I've tried it. I spent more time cleaning than painting, and that is not for me. But buy 6 at $3.50 a bottle and get 3 free. And at $3.50 a bottle with $7.50 shipping for a pack of 9 paints, your $7.50 shipping was covered by the coupon. So for me, that has value. And you don't have to redip between every model, because these things hold a deceptively large amount of paint. I may have actually put a little too much on those guys, because this brush is holding more than I expected. I also found a coupon for their speed paints. Now they're the 1.0 version. They're the version that you have to seal, or else another layer of paint will reactivate the paint. But since they're trying to move the inventory, and if the sale is still going on when you see this, buy 10, get 5 free. You heard that right. Buy 10, get 5 free. So 33% off for 15 bottles of speed paint. Now, I happen to have ordered one set of 15 on that coupon. The regular paints I've used 3 different times and gotten
designers can make cars look like
27 total paints,
Why not a car
which I'm happy with.
Or the future.
It's got all get here.
Why be boring?
You know,
You can make a katana blade slice through
it takes a little bit of time
That's the
when you're
Nissan
ordering
thing.
online.
Or something
But I'm
like
also not in a rush, because I'm not
And that's the Aria.
using those paints for these minis. I'm using my Reapers. I'm just doing a survey of primers, and I happen to have enough primers on hand to do a pretty good survey. Not just spray on versus brush on, but brand versus brand and color versus color. Now, I did not get a black from these army painters. Okay. So I can only show you the Reaper Black when I get to that one. Or when the one I already did. Yeah, duh. But it's quality primer. Okay. And that was 4 of them. And I've got the Sagittarius done. Again, this is how the black primer came out. This, and it's almost dry. You know, just me sitting here talking, and it's almost dry. And I actually don't even know. Is that okay? The gray is still under there. Okay, but it sort of covered up a little bit more as the primer settled, so that's fine. Again, that's been my go-to. Okay, but it's not a requirement at this point. I might see if I could do that too. I also recently got some 6th edition Car Wars cars. And since I have this huge glob of brush-on paint, when this video's over, I'm going to quickly roll into another video that will be for another series where I start the process of Car Wars car painting. Now, color choice. Why color choices? If I want something to look pristine and have no depth, no extra layers to the color, just a good, bold, light, vibrant color, I'm going to use a white primer. I don't need the depths of the primer to come out and show anything extra. I don't need to highlight a color that's on top of it or anything like that. Gray is a neutral. They say that for the speed paints you need a light primer, white or gray. The gray gives you just a little bit of depth. You can get just a little bit of extra out of it. And then the black will give you true depth of color. If you want to have something that comes out looking weathered and battle damaged, I strongly suggest not starting with white. I've done some white. Most of my D&D minis used to be done with white primer, and there's no depth, there's no pop, there's no pizzazz. Now you can dark coat and all of that fun stuff, but I have found that starting with the darker color primers gives you a richer base color. Okay, and I know that's hard to understand. Get some and try it. That is going to be the recommendation. If it's got you curious enough, get some and try it. Okay. Now, so that's a fair number of the citadels. You have not been primed. You have not been primed. Everything primed is over here. So I have just a few more. So we're going to switch over. We shake it up. Shift over and use some of this Reaper primer. And then I will stop the video when this is done, after we've looked at them all. And I will clean up my mess and put those shakers back in their bottle, and then go get some more minis and finish up using that primer because I want to. And this brush soaks up a lot more primer. I haven't used it on mini mechs yet, so this is an experiment even for me. Now we're moving a lot of primer really fast.
That's
Okay.
right. We know how important sleep is for
But
health and wellness.
we're also,
That's why
you
our
can
new line of
tell,
mattresses is here to
you can
provide
see
you
the
best
color
possible sleep
differentiations.
solutions.
We're not going whole hog and hitting 100%
Or
coverage.
the all-new purple collection with
We
the
hit
adaptive gel flex grid.
60-70%
Steve,
coverage.
that's your cue.
There's enough
Steve?
primer for paint to adhere to. In
Looks
all
like you found
honesty,
this
these
perfect
paints
mattress.
or these minis,
Elevate your
these
sleep game.
catalyst
Shop online or
catalyst
visit an Ashley store
minis
today.
can actually be painted without primer. I don't like that. I like getting the extra layer of color that a primer can provide. But that's me. Again, experiment. Don't hesitate to try. The only bad thing
I wanted running music, but unlimited
to do
1.5% cashback
when
is pretty
painting
heroic.
is not try something. If you've got a question, experiment with it. Find an answer. That's the real secret to how I've learned this. And I don't consider myself an artist. I'm just a guy who experiments. I'm a scientist. I like data points. I just happen to have gotten decent at priming and painting minis. Not at holding on to them though, because yeah, neuropathy is a great thing. There we go. At this point, it's not even neuropathy. At this point, it's just my straight clumsiness. Screw it. We'll just hold on to it. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just good enough. And that is good enough. Okay, good enough. This one. Okay. So it's a different shade of primer, even. It's a slightly brighter gray. So a little bit more white to it than the Armor Painter gray. So I could see an application for both. I can't really think of one in the short term, but I could see how somebody could use them differently. Okay. And at the end of the day, this is about doing what you enjoy in a way that you enjoy and producing something that you can sit back and say, I'm proud I did that. Which is all we're trying to go for here. Okay. Spray. Okay. Oh, that's why you look different. Okay. So, Citadel Gray Primer. About that shade of gray. A nice medium gray. Reaper black primer, a good solid black base coat to work off of. Reaper gray. I'm going to set these side by side. They're not very far off. There's just a touch more white in the Reaper gray. Just a vague difference. And then this is the spray-on gray primer. So the medium gray primer is darker than the brush-on primer. They are not the exact same coat. And that's okay. It's just a survey. It's a variation. And then we'll go back to using some of this. And just putting it on super fast. But you can see using the bigger brush, the layer goes on so much faster. And you can swirl the brush and twirl the brush, which will get into some of the crevices. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be a general coat. So that's done. Yeah, you can tell my hands are starting to stick to everything because I got enough paint on them. This one, we're actually going to do something different. We're going to mix our two primer colors because they're both primer and I trust them equally at this point. The Citadel stuff really does impress me, having spray primered with it. The only other spray primer I've ever used was the Tester's primer, and it was a little too fast and I had to brush it back out. You'll see in a few minutes the brush-on primer, or the spray-on primer from Citadel, from Army Painter, sorry, wrong company. Yeah, the Army War Paints. Just super simple to work with. The spray-on was really simple, even faster than this. But the brush-on with the makeup brush, oh my god, this is so simple. Okay, so there's a few different styles of primer to use and a few different reasons to use them. Let me toy around with priming some of my Car Wars stuff. I won't even use it. Well, I might video it. We'll see. I think most of those are going to get spray-on primer, maybe even the Tester's primer. So yeah, I'm not sure. I've got a lot going through my head right now. But that was the basics of priming. That was step one. Okay, step one. I'm not trying to tell you, oh, this is super simple, but if you use the right tool, it is actually that easy, because you're moving enough paint around, you're sopping up enough paint, and you're moving enough paint around that you can control a thin layer. That one thickened up a little thicker than I wanted there, but I can clean that up in a second. But you just want a thin layer. It doesn't have to coat 100%, just enough that when you put your paint on, it'll stick. That's it. You're about to watch me do the spray painting and talk about that a little bit. But other than that, don't forget to check out the Ko-Fi, the Worldwide Goji Kaichu Ko-Fi. Subscribe, like, notifications, all that fun stuff. You know the things. If this has been helpful, feel free to leave a comment. I would love to actually get some feedback from people on whether or not this series is helping, or if there's any aspect of this you want me to go deeper into, because I will. All right. See y'all in the space lanes. Are we wrong? So this is spray priming. We've been working on brush priming. This is spray priming. We have here the Army Painter Uniform Gray primer. The brush on primer that we're doing is gray. So we're sticking with the gray theme for these. It's not how I did them originally, but I'm going for something a little bit different. And this is just shake your can well, and a few blasts. Comes out pretty heavy. So I try not to spray too much at a time. And you can tell I've got a brush out on the countertop here or on the deck railing so that...
Okay.
So we're just going to spin them all around here. Again, you're not going for 100% coverage. You're just going for a thin layer, because paint will adhere to a thin layer. And I don't mind it getting on the base. We'll deal with the bases later. My wife is running the camera and I'm trying not to get her or my phone. Anytime I come out here on the back porch, I am not using my computer, and that's why the video looks funnier. Decent. Okay, it looks like we got a decent layer of primer, no brushing needed. We kept it light, we kept it simple. You need a little. This is why I'm wearing the gloves. This guy, we didn't get into the sides, into the arms, so we did that manually. Same here. And you can see that color change just slightly, because even though they're gray plastic, it's gray primer. Just a hair. Again, I'm not going for total coverage. I just want to see a little bit of that color change to indicate, hey, you've been primed and paint will stick. That might have been a little heavy. If you're using green stuff on something and you have extra balls of it, extra wads of it, you can create little rocks on your mix. That's what that is, and that's why it's now gray. That's just a little something I do so I'm not wasting green stuff when I do it for whatever. That's the process. A little bit of spray goes a long way. Not a lot of effort. I'll spray this guy down even though he came off of his base, and then I'll get him onto his base. Back. It's not a mistake. It's not even a happy little accident in this case. It's just sometimes minis come off their bases when they fall. No harm, no foul. I'll clean up the base and get him sorted out and back on it before we paint him. But that is spray priming in a quick little tutorial how-to video. We'll keep talking about it. Thank you.